Here, and I'll check the YouTube here.
Yeah,
It doesn't look like it's going live yet. I'm re
it should be now. So I want to open the page just to have it there.
Yep. Yeah, because I'm looking at it and it's got a 2 minute 11 second countdown.
It should be now. So looks like it's going. Yeah, my end is going, bro. So
Okay.
um, all right, everybody. I'm your brother Anu Hazi, and tonight we're doing things a little bit differently. We'll be doing a conversation interview with our brother Brian. Can you say hello to everybody, brother?
I can, absolutely. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here for the first time on your show tonight, Christos. And I look forward to our discussion about full disclosure, the movement, some of the opposition, and even how we got here probably is will be a good start too.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this is powerful information. It's very needed information. And just so people don't, who may not know, disclosure, what is disclosure? Disclosing something, revealing something, which is in reference to the secret space program. It's called a secret for a reason. And it goes way beyond what you think of as NASA or what NASA's doing. It's extraordinary. It's unbelievable at first, but when you start hearing all these testimonies, not just one source, many different sources, many different whistleblowers are called, coming and talking about the secret space program, the secret government, the secret military. And while some of that's labeled conspiracy theory, a lot of other people realize it's conspiracy fact. So I was wondering, Brian, if you could, I just want to say that if you can first introduce yourself and your spiritual journey and how that led to you being into the disclosure movement.
Okay, but yeah, absolutely. Um, a lot of it began with my childhood. I just remember at a very young age wanting to make a positive impact, seeing, poverty on the East Coast, in the inner cities, where my family was kind of driving into the city to like eat, Chinese food in whatever local Chinatown it would be in either Philadelphia or New York City or the Trenton, New Jersey area, for example. And I got to see my father make a huge difference, kind of on the world stage. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up Tseng Labs, you'll see Tseng Labs Inc., where my father used to design computer graphics cards and the chips to drive the graphics processing units, to catch IBM up with Apple at the time. And so in the 80s and 90s, and I saw him really not only kind of like make his own impact, starting his company out of our basement, a little, working class neighborhood in Pennsylvania. That obviously influenced me, and I learned a lot from him. And I went and got my biochemistry degree um, at Occidental College in Los Angeles. And I thought I'd learn how to clean up oil spills by genetically modifying slime mold to clean up oil spills, for example. And quickly, I found out after graduating into the field that that's the biochem pharma companies. They just want the next drug for shaky leg syndrome that doesn't cure anything, but you can just make millions and billions of dollars off of it, whether or not the drug has negative side effects. I became a medical organizer and advocate with a group called the Physicians Organizing Committee for 8 years. Five of them were full time, and I rose to the level of operations manager, all volunteer basis, non-government, organizing doctors as a private membership association who joined the association and under their board and the leadership on a day-to-day basis, we as organizer advocates work with them and they get the word out to the community about medical denials that are absolutely outrageous. Where like insurance companies are supposed to cover heart surgeries and you know um, orthopedic care, back surgeries, things like that. Um, Mostly we though focused a lot on the more it was the higher stakes cases like life or death, and in doing that, that taught me a lot. How to organize on a non-government basis and rally support from the community, not just to fight the individual cases to help the patients in the community get their care, but to stop hospitals from being shut down. And we would threaten, or not like legally, the nonprofit status
Mhm.
of so-called nonprofit charity hospital corporations like Sutter Health or Kaiser, and who don't provide charity care. I'm going on the record as saying that I've done that in many public hearing and demonstrated it. Um, and they were shutting down hospitals, and we didn't just pick it and say, "What are we going to do?" And get in front of their hospitals and with signs and scream. You see a lot of that these days, and it's not that you don't ever do that, but we organized the physicians together with the business people down the street from the hospital who they had their children born at that hospital, and they relied on the staff to come eat at their restaurants and shop at their stores. And there's this real symbiotic relationship. And then getting the students, and especially the university where the college students wanting to go to medical school, giving them a taste of what medicine's really going to be like under this system. And I learned a lot until what many of us call uh, the certain cold crisis that circulated around the world, and they rolled out these certain where you have to roll up your sleeve and get a cocktail stuck in
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
right? And that was, these hospitals that I fought to save now became, in my opinion, concentration camps.
Yeah.
First killing people with incorrect COVID protocols, or sorry, to use the C word, but because they were putting remdesivir and midazolam into people and sticking them on ventilators, which is horrible, even in the best case scenarios. And then everything that followed. And so
So
that
not healing people, not helping people, but harming.
eliminating,
Yeah.
oh, genocide, children, you know, uh, grandparents, adults first, and then working their way down to the children. Now it's going to be generational because there is, evidence that reverse transcription can take place with a synthetic mRNA and then mess up people's DNA, which then is one reason why a lot of people are getting turbo cancers. And this is very well documented. Dr. Daglish, I think, is one of them documenting that particular. And you can look that up with him and the Yale Medical School staff, that study. But needless to say, that really opened my eyes. Like, okay, how do we deal with a society that's causing all these problems and issues, not just in healthcare, but everything that we see around us today? And I started watching shows like Journey to Truth podcast, and Typical Skeptic podcast, where they were interviewing people. They were talking about being kidnapped into time travel programs and
Hmm.
super soldier projects and having memories of being off world and
Sounds
fighting.
like science fiction at first, huh?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then the reality is that science fiction is really soft disclosure based on science fact.
Yes.
Okay, what's really happening? Star Trek came from the Galactic Federation, the Prime Directive, and now it's from um, oh boy, what's the name of the creator? Gene Roddenberry sitting in on so-called seances, but really psychic contact sessions in Berkeley, I think during the 50s.
Like
Um,
channeling, right?
Basically, a woman, I forget the name, named Marcel, or I forget the Barrett Marcel or Marcel, something like that, but you can look it up. She was getting information or downloads about galactic federations and positive ETs who do want to assist humanity in spiritually ascending first and foremost, not just technologically ascending. And then that's where you saw Valiant Thor, the stranger at the Pentagon, for 4 years in the early 50s, visiting the Pentagon, trying to convince the Eisenhower administration and the American government in general to side with the more positive galactics as opposed
Mhm.
to they signed the crappy treaty, the
People can
Gray.
look this up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The 1950, I think it's
Yeah.
1952, the Greada Treaty,
Valiant
and
Thor.
yeah, Valiant Thor, Stranger in the Pentagon, documented by Dr. Frank Strange's. Um, and we instead signed the Greada Treaty really behind President Dwight Eisenhower's back, and his great granddaughter, friend of ours, Laura Eisenhower, testifies to all of this, to clarify what really happened.
She's
And
speaking about this too, huh?
yeah, that was where the apparently the Greys were going to exchange technology to the U.S. government, like anti-gravitic propulsion, for example, so you could have like the TR-3B black triangles.
Philadelphia
It
experiment.
Well, that's different. I don't want to get to that
Okay,
because
okay.
that's even before
Yeah.
that. That was 1943, the Philadelphia experiments. There are a couple of them, several, maybe three, I think. Um, but the Greada Treaty in 1952, it gave the Greys supposedly limited rights to abduct American citizens, conduct limited experiments upon us, and then as long as they returned us, they didn't kill us and they reported who they were taking, what they were doing to us to the American government, it would be okay. Well, the problem was those grays were really proxies for the negative Draco reptilians, is my
Yeah.
understanding, and
Hmm.
probably and the Anunnaki probably as well, because when it comes down to it, it's really the Anunnaki right now who are really suppressing humanity with some of the negative Draco, Alpha Dracos who also don't want to leave and back off, but they're being forced out by the Galactic Federation types and the councils who are representing, they want to see the more service to other path as opposed to
Hmm.
service to self.
And people will see this as a theme that all these projects have something to do with extraterrestrial beings, whether they're positive or negative, right? So,
I mean, yes, absolutely, because all these beings who are interacting with us have various agendas. I mean,
mhm.
there's as many different of us, as almost it feels like like there's agendas out there because there's so many different types of ETs. Many of us here as humans right now are called star seeds. So we're humans incarnated now, but in past lives or even in future lives, will have lived in the stars. And we chose to incarnate here as humans to help liberate humanity from as ground crew. And that's how it's not a violation of the Prime Directive. It's not an advanced civilization swooping down out of the blue, out of space to fix our problems, but sending their own to incarnate here literally gives them skin in the game. And then it empowers us to the differences that we make to help, as humans to elevate ourselves and our consciousness and socially, as a community and,
Mhm.
globally. Um, Now it's kind of like we've infiltrated a system that's been taken over and run as a prison planet incorrectly for millions of years now.
Yeah, what you're describing is also called hybrids. Like the soul essence will come and incarnate into a hybrid body. Some of those are positive bloodlines, some of them are negative. Like you said, all coming with different agendas, almost like competing agendas. As a matter of fact, when we talk more about the SSP, there's something called the Super Federation that has several different agendas and genetic hybridization projects going on simultaneously. So
And
that,
even the galactic so-called Galactic Federation, apparently
right,
they're all at odds with,
right,
they're not like, for example, look at our UN. How much does a UN ever agree on anything? Like never, right?
right, right.
So apparently in the Galactic Federation, I think Elizabeth April has been reporting on this, um, and May the Farsight Institute as well. Yeah, Farsight Institute for sure. They're talking about how in the Galactic Federation, there are groups like Worlds and ETs who are signed up as members, charter members of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And
Mhm.
Earth and humanity, we're not, because we don't meet the requirements. We're not a level one civilization where every man, woman, and child is well taken care of,
Right.
fed, employed if we want to be, housed, blah, blah, blah. We're a level zero civilization on that scale. And so we don't meet the requirements. And they say, well, why is the Galactic Federation putting in so many resources, especially against the Alpha Draco and the Anunnaki, but probably more the Draco, to, assist Earth and humanity when we're not even signatories and they're getting their butts kicked wherever they are, perhaps by, the negative Alpha Draco or the negative Orion or Nebu types are negative Pleiadians, and there's negative of all types of ETs, just like they're positive,
Yeah, we
you
talk a
know.
lot about that.
Yeah, and when I cited skin in the game and star seeds, yeah, I kind of come from the positive star seed aspect, but yeah,
Yeah,
like you
of
say,
course,
there are a
yeah.
lot of service to self negative star seeds that are also down here because
Mm.
it's a real battleground like that.
Yeah. Um, and this is great because it leads into uh, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is the secret space program. And basically, it's like also called the SSP, you guys, and it's the hidden idea that there's a breakaway space programs, not just NASA or something beyond NASA. And they operate completely off the books, man. I mean, beyond NASA itself, beyond governments, beyond anything, that we've been told in the public. And we're talking about advanced technology, off-planet colonies, interplanetary missions, and even like contact with ETs, but all kept secret through like compartmentalization. Not many people actually know the whole picture, right, brother?
Exactly. And if you let me share my screen here, I'm going to pull up a lot of this because you mentioned the Philadelphia experiment earlier, and it goes a lot back to that and World War II and the lead up to World War II, especially. And so, for our audience, perhaps I could
Yeah.
take us a little bit through that.
They can see sort of the footprints that led to this.
Yes, it looks like you need to enable screen sharing, Chris, and while you're doing that, I'll also want to explain that humanity, we didn't descend from monkeys and apes. We were seeded here by like 20 plus starseed nations as an experiment, as early hominids. And then we've been experimented upon for the millions of years since they wiped out the dinosaurs to clear the game board for the human experiment. And then a couple 100,000 years ago, somewhere along the lines, we got hijacked by the Anunnaki who nerfed us so that they could control us to mine gold and they could eat us. And they teamed up with certain negative reptilians running I believe it's the Alpha Draco, like the Siakar Naboo, like Orion Hive alliance. They had like this huge Orion network of more negative service to self type ETs that had teamed together to basically run huge sectors of space. And so when when you look at pyramids all over the world and they're lined up in the Giza plateau is lined up, for example, those pyramids are lined up along the Orion's belt. That's representing the Orion the former Orion Empire.
Yeah, there's a lot of astronomical data inside the actual structure and measurements of the pyramid, kind of like call signs to where who's been, part of that project. So,
Yeah, there's sacred geometry just of the pyramids themselves, and then like the layouts, like that's like I call it. I think of it as tag, like tagging a gang sign. Like oh, there's
right.
like Orion turf, like Orion turf. It's like the three pyramids in the Orion's belt, because those star systems there represent some of the home worlds of like that
Mhm.
former empire and like some of the draconian queens, apparently.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's been shifted from ancient pole shift. It was different things going on. Oh, look, it looks like you're able to share now.
Yes. Okay. So basically, what happened was, well, pole shift. Basically, that's dealing with wiping out and resetting the board of humanity. And apparently, Atlantis was the previous one, and then that was like 10,000 years ago, right? And then now going into like the Mesopotamian times, into the Egyptian times, down to the Roman times to today as America's modern ancient Rome. Um, we've always been messed with by ETs with these different agendas. And Earth has apparently always been really reptilian territory. That's why the dinosaurs were on it before us as a human experiment. And so that already kind of complicates this whole prime directive thing. if Earth is rightfully reptilian turf, even though they agreed to disappear from its surface. There's some deal that they and the Anunnaki had to cut with the Galactic Federation, apparently. I think Elizabeth April reports on that. And that was like thousands and thousands of years ago, but they never truly went away. Needless to say, um, in more modern times, in the lead up to World War II, 1930s Germany, beautiful woman by the name of Maria Orsic.
Hmm.
She and later on her fellow Vril Damen, okay, these are apparently very beautiful psychic starseed German women who were getting telepathic downloads from ETs who identified themselves as coming from the star system Aldebaran. They were
Channeling again.
channeling, right? Channeling, channeling, or I call it definitely, telepathic communication. I think of it more as channeling if like, they kind of an entity is coming into your body and to speak through you and then versus like picking up a telephone and you're
But
talking to the being and relating it. I'm not sure what it was for them, but it could have been, you know.
but it was like a ritual too, right? I mean, ceremony type of thing.
Well, apparently what happened is they got swept up by something known as the Black Sun Society in Germany,
That's
which is,
reptilian.
yeah, they're very reptilian, they're very occult driven. They are the ones sending like the Nazis all over the globe looking for the Spear of Destiny or to Tibet to get the entrance to Shambhala or Agartha. I forget which one. Things like that.
Hmm.
And so that's where amongst the plans that were downloaded, these schematics were things like Hitler's bell, Die Glocken. Okay. And this was basically known as like a kind of like a time travel thing, but it's very rudimentary. And apparently a lot of people, a lot of the Nazis died, the scientists and staff died trying to like put this thing together and fire it up, And not only did it lead to Die Glocken, Hitler's bell, people feel free to look that up. It also led to the Hanabu, the Nazi saucer type UFOs where they'll have like the Panzer type turret on it with the Iron Cross.
And can you
Okay.
share when this was actually, this was around World War One, right?
World War II. World War One was more 1912 to like 1917 into 1919 as the Russian Revolution happened and it wound down. World War Two was more 1939 officially with Hitler, I think, annexing uh, Austria into 1945 with a surrender to the Japanese. And the Maria Orsic and the Vril Damen and the Black Sun Society, they were doing their thing into the 1930s, leading up into World War II and then during World War II. Okay. And this is so here's their symbol. It's like this thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Schwarzsonnen or whatever, Black Sun. And so um
And this led to those first ships, crafts, right? The
right.
Hannibal.
They had the Hanabu, but the thing was, people were like, well, if the Nazis had these advanced German flying saucers, how
Why
come?
didn't they win the war, right?
Right. Well, the deal was, okay, is that they didn't have the production capability and pilots to fly all these things by the end of World War II,
It's too
with
late.
especially with the Soviet Union, which was pissed off coming
Yeah.
down their eastern flanks, and then the West, with the U.S. relative to the Reds, the Soviets, we were taking our time apparently. Okay. And so I mean, and I don't want to not meaning any disservice to any of the veterans who fought in that mess of World War II, especially on our side, against the Nazis. But unfortunately, what happened was um, the Nazis, they basically saw the writing on the wall. They packed up all the production they could, and they moved it through the rat lines down to Latin South America, places like Argentina and Ushuaia at the very tip of Latin America. It's like a city there. I guess it's the bottom of Chile or wherever. And down to Antarctica to then New Schwabenland and base, I think it's 217 or whatever the base number was. And they began to retool there. And
Well, this
the
led to Admiral Byrd eventually.
exactly because
Yeah.
what happened was the Allies, they some Allied spies apparently were sneaking out pictures of some of this stuff out of Germany. They made it out. And the Allies were like, holy cow, we got to catch up. And then that's what led to the Philadelphia experiment in 1943. Hold on a second. The sailors of this ship, it was horrific what happened to them. Basically, the Philadelphia experiment, oops,
There's a movie, by the way,
yes. Um,
which was a Zeta Gray alien tech trying to help, supposedly help the government, but they didn't realize they were actually opening portals with with this experiment.
yeah, well, apparently what it was is they had Tesla, okay, and I think John von Neumann and maybe other couple other scientists, but who they said, okay, well, you could take a ship, and they said to achieve radar invisibility, they took the USS Eldridge, a destroyer class naval ship, and they stuck a Tesla coil generator, one on each end. This is what I'm told, okay, from various sources. And then they had like the control center and the engine room like shielded in the middle, and they fired it up. And on at least one of the times they did, not only they achieve radar invisibility, they ripped a hole in time and space
And
and
teleported.
teleported around. In the movies, the Philadelphia Experiment, there are a couple of different movies on
Yeah.
this. Okay, and the sailors, they got messed up real bad. Um, I'm told that these pictures are real, where oh, where I guess that's as good as I can get it for now.
That's
Where
from the movie, yeah.
there, no, this is real.
Well, it
This
says
this
it's
this this
still,
isn't from a movie. This is what I'm told is this is real. This actual photo isn't from a movie. This is supposed to be an actual photo that's leaked, where this dude is his face is literally merged into the hull. And this is an old photo before they had good Photoshop. His hands are sticking out of the hull.
yeah,
Because
they
what?
tried to do that in the movie too.
Oh yeah, well here's this is supposed to be a movie recreation, and
Yeah.
then this is supposed to be real.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the US government was like, wow, this stuff works. Apparently Tesla, to his credit, and I think it's other scientists, they withdrew from the project before this was fired up because they knew this wasn't ready for human beings.
Right.
This is not humane to fire it up with all these sailors on board, and they did it anyway.
Uh-huh.
And that's also when they figured out that Earth apparently has a 20-year time cycle. Then that's why you get so many people talking about 20 and backs, because when you do time travel, they found out for doing time travel on Earth, the most stable increments are in 20-year increments, or and then they were able to do fractions of 20, like 10 and 5. But apparently tw increments of 20 is the easiest to do.
And this was added on later with the Montauk project.
Well, what happened was this led to the Montauk Project
That's
because
what I meant. Yeah.
because when you when you look at the TV show Stranger Things going into its fifth season, making like how many millions or billions of dollars, um, you know, uh, the Allies realize, okay, this is a real, the Germans are way ahead of us. We have to catch up. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Well, there's something to this Tesla technology. It looks like they moved experimentations to Brookhaven National Laboratory, which again, it's on the East Coast, not far from Philadelphia. You got a lot of eggheads there in Manhattan, right? You had the Manhattan Project. And
Mhm.
then, Brookhaven National Laboratory, when you look at it, it's like driving distance out onto Long Island, New York, beautiful land stolen from the Montauk tribes of Native Americans like 100 plus years ago. And
That's where it gets its name. right?
Yes, yes, and it was, real. It's a crying shame. It's this magical land, like so much of this land.
Yeah.
And but when you think about it, out here in Brookhaven National Laboratory, look at they've got like these particle ring accelerator things going here. This is a bigger one. Here looks like a smaller one. And so when you watch Stranger Things, like Hawkins Laboratories with like shady ties to the Department of Energy,
It's
right?
soft disclosure.
Yeah, that's Brookhaven National Laboratory. And apparently they, if crap went down, at least it's not in the middle of New York City,
Yeah.
downtown Manhattan. But at the same time, you could get people down the Jackie Robinson Expressway, Parkway or Expressway or whatever it is, out here. And later on, they moved it even further out to the former, it was Camp Hero Air Force Base, okay, which is now a state park with the iconic Sage radar tower at Montauk. And it's this thing here at the Air Force Base, which many people chillingly remember, because what happened was they went from Brookhaven National Laboratory out to Camp Hero, and they began experimenting on children because they found that children were the only ones who are psychically strong enough to open up portals in time and space when they were strapped into something known as the Montauk Trip Chair. And there aren't any pictures of this chair, but they're just depictions.
And isn't
But
this part of my labs too?
well, yeah,
Where
MILABs are
they,
military abductees, so they were kidnapping children to do
yeah,
things like
psychic children.
yes,
They
and
don't want regular kids. They want the ones who are hybrid indigo guardians.
oh geez, Montauk Trip Chair. This is not good.
Wrong chair, Ray.
Mm.
Maybe they cleaned that search up for so people. You know how to
Yeah,
get it.
that's a Project Looking Glass right there. It would have looked. People told said everyone I've ever talked to who remember it, they say it looked like a futuristic dentist chair, and then it had like a projector hanging down from the ceiling that would project stuff onto the images onto the wall, and then they would like put like a hairnet
It,
thing on your head with all sorts of electrodes,
well,
and then they
It's kind of like the Total Recall machine where you sit in, plug
yes,
into your brain, and takes you
yes.
somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what Chris Lederer remembers, a French Canadian gentleman who, as a child, was brought down across the border down from Niagara Falls. The I don't know, he's French Canadian uh, area, and they would strap him in, and he remembers the one time, he was basically pulled out of the dog cages that the children were kept in underneath these bunkers, underneath not the Sage Radar Tower was like underneath there is where they kept the Montauk chair, apparently, like I don't know, like 10 levels below underneath the ground level. I don't know how far down, but they also had other bunkers where um, they had children were kept in cages. And then there was like an underground tunnel network because this is a deep underground military base. Okay. And he remembers being dragged out of this cage. There was already one child was dead and they were draining his blood. And they pulled Chris out of his cage and he was trying to whisper to his other buddy, like Tony, hey, Tony, are you alive? Do you see this kid outside your cage that I'm seeing who looks like he's, not alive? And they it was Al Bielek, I think, or Preston Nichols. Might have been Al Bielek or Jack Pruitt. One of them were dragging him to strap him into the Montauk trip chair. And then they he said it was really cold. He shivered. Maybe Preston Nichols or Al Bielek noticed and made a cruel joke. Hey kid, I forgot to warm it up for you. My bad. Like being a
Yeah,
jerk because they were really cruel to these children.
yeah,
Okay. I mean, that was like the least of their child's words, how cold the chair was. Um, he uh they put a hairnet thing on his head and he was like, how come this is different from the other one? Because they had like a more, I don't know, I don't know, high-tech advanced one before, but this was more of just like a regular hairnet with like probes stuck all over it. And he said like Preston Nichols might have been the one told him, don't worry, kid, it does the same function. They gave him Blue Lotus to breathe on like a face mask. And the job that he was supposed to do was basically the task was to enter in a trance state, um, open up a portal on the wall, leave their physical body in the astral, and then go through the portal, explore around, and then come back.
And
And
this is
apparently,
exactly why they need psychic kids.
oh yeah, and adults couldn't do it. And
Right.
apparently, this chair might have been recovered from one of the Roswell crash sites because the way the ETs pilot their craft is not stick and rudder. They telepathically link with their craft and then pilot them. And so the chair would augment the psychic abilities of the psychically talented children, and they burned through a lot of children who died in that chair because they weren't psychic enough or they fried out. Or Christopher, he said that that particular task they had already lost a lot of the children because they'd go in a trance, they'd open the portal, they'd leave their body in the astral, they'd go through the portal in the astral, and then they couldn't maintain the portal, it would close. And at that point, it severed the connection in a
Right.
way that they
Right.
died. Physical death.
Can you
Okay.
take off the share screen for a bit?
Oh yeah, sorry. I
S-
can. Yes.
So that becomes like a disembodied spirit. That's, I mean, when you cut that off like that. And um, but notice how they do this in Stranger Things. They're showing the same secret government projects and are messing with time. They're messing with the other dimensions. They have these creatures from the other worlds, extraterrestrials. I mean, this is just crazy, man.
Well,
What's
but let's get now into how they're whitewashing it. Okay, this is a very whitewashed story.
Mhm.
First of all, Stranger Things is a very Hollywoodized Steven Spielberg 80s nostalgia version of what really happened there. And then what they really leave out, I just like plot twist, like I'm just going to ruin it, for everybody. Not quote unquote ruin, I'm just going to disclose it out there in just plain simple English. What they were really doing was generating generations of super soldiers out of the psychically gifted children to turn them into super spies and assassins and warriors and couriers,
Well,
things like that.
explain what is a super soldier so people have a reference.
These are people where they've been through a lot of serious MK Ultra mind control and ritual abuse to program them with various alters or identities that are siloed off from one another. In particular, the main person, like you could have these alters embedded in you, which can be triggered with code words and sounds and music, for example, or under certain conditions. And then all of a sudden, like you're speaking German and you know how to shoot any type of gun and you're an expert shot. And that's your assassin alter, Carl. Okay. So that would be a super soldier, and it's really a misnomer because so many of the people who've been through this process and have actual recall, they don't feel so super given everything that they were put through and made to
Yeah,
do. But so it's a really glamorous misnomer, but we kind of let it stick because people are familiar with the term by now.
yeah.
Um, but the main thing, other beyond generating super soldiers programmed soldiers and sex slaves, I'm sad to say. Um, they also and Manchurian candidates to run governments and things like that, infiltrate societies. They are also opening up portals in time and space to alter our timeline and to do everything they can and could to put us on a negative timeline. Think of a Mad Max timeline or a Matrix timeline or super transhumanism timeline where like Alex Collier speaks of where humanity is taken over, we're turned into super soldiers. We established under the Draco and negative Draco and negative Anunnaki bases on Earth, the moon, and Mars, and then Jupiter, and go through the stargates and just send out havoc all over the universe, and also use time travel to wreak havoc. And we've already been doing time travel to wreak havoc. And then that leads to the off-world civilizations, the secret breakaway civilizations. Number one, the Germans, because they got off planet first and foremost together. It's kind of tied at the hips
Well,
with the Japanese.
explain what a breakaway civilization is. That means
So
they basically got so advanced that they're off on their own now, right?
everyone, I'm sure most people watching this are familiar with Avatar, the movie Avatar.
Hmm. Yeah.
So imagine literally taking super soldiers, and then throwing them onto an ET planet because you could portal or Stargate, or we have now craft advanced enough to do jumps and things like that because of ET technology, not human ingenuity on our own, but because we are the shock troops under these negative ET groups, who then been pushing and driving the Khazarian mafia and the Black Sun Society types of human puppet losers and the bloodline families who think they're so superior, but they're really inbred down here, who want to turn us into their transhumanist sheep and food supply and sex slaves and super soldiers and added,
Hmm. Yeah.
under them after they depopulated us per the Georgia Guidestones down to like 500
Hmm.
million in perpetuity
Yeah.
and balance for nature, whatever. A bunch of garbage. And it's really loser-fairyism. And they've already lost, by the way, but it's still on us to win. But with not by having really full disclosure, because th as a society, as humanity, we can't vibrate. We can only vibrate so high if we're living in lies and distorted
Hmm.
reality. And we can't agree that the Earth is spheroid generally, but there are other dimensions and planes. But generally, we are a sphere, but there's an inner Earth, and maybe there's interference in us getting out to the stars, but that aside, the fact that we're not alone, we're actually from ETs. There are many ETs. They're already here. There's the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Rigelians, Vegans, Alpha Draco, the negative Anunnaki, and I could go on and on. And there's a Russian Yellow Book. There's a Craig Campobasso's ET Almanac. There's others that document a lot of these ET groups, and there's a lot of consistency. And then a lot of the people in our community are star seeds and have recall and are actively in telepathic communication or channel many of these groups with a lot of consistency. And then you can double blind cross-check them against each other, which I love to do. Because that's my duty as an investigator, organizer, advocate, and self-appointed, thank you, in the full disclosure movement to do my best to be informed, right? So that we can, you know, provide a clear, undistorted answer to
Yeah.
what's really going on. And then when people now the blinders are off, the funhouse kaleidoscope mirrors have been all torn away. Okay. Now, as a society, we can like make decisions based on what's really going on. And now we can also force the disclosure of all the suppressed technologies that are being not only been hidden and taken away from us, but are being used against us,
Can you
you
like
know,
list some of those?
clean energy, nanotechnology,
Free energy,
free energy, clean zero point energy,
med
uh, e-
beds.
right, med beds. Zero point energy apparently then it goes with anti-gravity, and then that goes with time travel. All three are interconnected. Okay. And
And
yeah,
people think that's science fiction, but what do you think the Guardians talk about? Stargates. When you go through a Stargate, you're time traveling. You go through a gravitic drive spaceship that's taking you through portals and Stargates, you're going through time travel, right? So,
for all the people who would call this science fiction,
mhm.
I answered those are people who are generally still living stuck in the 3D matrix consensus type distorted reality.
Yeah.
And when you're getting to the fourth density of consciousness, that's where you're starting to see the paranormal, like telepathy, and have clairvoyant dreams, or feeling when a loved one is in pain from far away, like just of empathy from at a distance, or being able to pray for someone
Mm,
and heal them, or laying on of hands and healing them
mm,
in person or at a distance. All of that stuff, we're seeing demons or
yeah.
shadow people or ETs or being taken aboard craft, as many of our people are. We're learning, a lot of people are learning how to astral project a remote view. Although I recommend starting with remote viewing first.
Yeah.
Astral projection can be dangerous. Be careful out there. Um,
Well, a lot of humans have this potential, but we just, like you said earlier, we've been disempowered. A lot of things keep us down from our true potential.
yeah, well, that's part of the nerfing,
Right.
and that's also part of the awakening is where breaking out of those shackles. Apparently, our solar system, on the edge tip of the eighth arm around the center of our spiral Milky Way galaxy, as we spin and rotate around the galactic center, as we come around, we're entering in an area of space that is higher in frequency. There's more energy and light and just bombardment. And just as in the physical, right, apparently spiritually, all that energy, it's burning out, it's frying out the darkness, it's bringing out the contradictions. All is being revealed. And so the full disclosure movement is part and parcel of that. And I see it as the route to our collective Star Trek future. Okay. Instead of that transhumanism matrix Luzerfarian wet dream where it's a downhill, like the spiraling, the Christ consciousness spiral
Hmm.
up
Yeah.
is a Star Trek future where humanity, we get to join our intergalactic brothers and sisters. We get to discover our inner Earth family.
Hmm.
We get to understand that there are ETs, positive and negative, and spiritual beings in higher densities and realms, angelic and demonic, and God and certain negative demiurge Luciferian types that you know serve a purpose of bringing the light and evil to the good, as a contrast.
Life is a lot more complex than people understand it, that they think they take it for granted, but there's so many different, so much life. God is great. There's so much life. There's so much going on. Maybe get outside that bubble a little bit, right?
Well, it really starts with the people. You got to look at it if you're stuck in the fishbowl. We only have one life to live. When we die, we're worm food. Maybe there's a heaven, but if we're not good enough, we're not going to make it. We're going to end up in hell for eternity. People who have anywhere near that worldview, that is a very soul-crushing, vibration-lowering, limited self-limiting and self-damaging. It's an abusive, really, worldview, in my opinion, you know. And so when you start looking at, wow, we've got infinite lives, and there's something known as the law of one, right? Which I'm sure all your viewers here are familiar with, right? We all
Yeah.
come from the God source spark, and then we're a chip off the old block, and that's the shattering, and it's not fun apparently. And we knocked off the block, and we drop however many densities or lower levels or reality realms, and then we all get to work our way back up to the old block. And at the same time, we're all connected to the block in the meantime, and we're connected to each other because we're all fractal holographically connected in one. And that's not just space and in linking to source, but all of time, space, and everybody. And when you realize that we're all one and time space doesn't really exist, it's all interconnected, and that becomes more than just a saying. Now the potential for time travel and remote viewing and healing at a distance, all that becomes much more real. And this goes back to the famous debate between Einstein and Niels Bohr's a spooky attraction at a distance, where according to Einstein, quantum entanglement and quantum mechanics doesn't work. And boy, was Einstein wrong, based off of what he stole from his wife and other collaborators who he never gave credit to.
Yeah, even quantum physicists are figuring out that the universe isn't physical or solid. Everything is vibration on a subatomic level. So everything is consciousness and spirit, but they won't acknowledge that. So
Well, the mainstream won't
yeah,
acknowledge it, but so many of us are. And,
of
here we
course.
are, and your audience, like you're up to like 98,000 subscribers. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm being a what do you call it, shadow
throttled.
ban?
You're shadow banned. Of course you are, and
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to help your cause. I'm sorry. I end up getting shadow banned and throttled, and then there are a couple of shows I was on that were taken away shortly after I was on them.
Yeah, well, we're mindful of that and careful and but it's throttled on Instagram. Instagram just stays still, it doesn't go anywhere. And TikTok, Facebook, it's all the same. But when people come out with truth, the all these are censors. They have some type of censorship involved. So
Well, that's because most of these platforms are majority owned, by interests such as BlackRock and Vanguard Group.
yeah,
And therefore they're really owned by the so-called elites who are really as Anya Wick, a niece of Jeffrey Epstein, she name calls them. They call themselves the cult of Baal. And so they're literally in the Bible when they talked about Aaron, kind of like they're like in those days, some of the groups in the Middle East began worshiping the golden calves and hurting children, things like that. That group, that's really goes back to Atlantean times with negative Anunnaki and negative reptilian influence and negative demonic influence as well over those ages till today. And many people are in these, it's really one bloodline family, but they call themselves the 13 families to the public. Apparently, they were, according to Penny Bradley, good friend in the community, grandma bear of the secret space program survivors and
mhm,
experiencers.
yeah,
She says that she was told that they were really pulling Fritz Springmeier's leg when they told him there were 13 bloodlines. He says she says there's really the one, the family. And then there's like the RH negative types who they're, trying to take the earth down this negative transhumanist pathway because in their minds, they get to rule, an enslaved humanity, you know, which is
yeah.
it shows how evil and dumb they are.
Yeah, like you said, they've done this in the past. They had the Anunnaki come and create the Nephilim between their blood and the humans. So they're actually Earthlings, but they were eventually taken off. But same thing with the reptilians. They created the Dracos, half human, half reptilian. So we have these hybrid bloodlines, but there's a few positive ones, not just dark, but you're going to see them trying to rule, just like, all these different Illuminati family lines. They're part of the negative agenda. So,
Right. And then there are a couple different negative agendas and they're warring with each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
like gangsters of competing.
Pretty
So,
much. I mean, they literally they are gangsters.
mhm,
You've got the ones who are more aligned with the Vatican, apparently, and then the ones who are like less aligned. And then those two groups are like fighting it out. And then you got the secret, the breakaway civilizations and the with literally their own fleets of spaceships and craft, who are largely in public. Not only do we as humanity largely not know about them up there, apparently a lot of the civilizations up there, they either don't know about Earth still being here and inhabited. They were a lot of them, especially the ones in the conscripted groups, were told they've been lied to and
mhm,
told that Earth was rendered uninhabitable by cobalt bombs.
I see.
Okay. Or like they're just, separated, they don't care. Or there are people, probably the elites up there, and they're in the know, and then they exploit Earth just like everywhere else up in space that they exploit.
Yeah.
And then the
Um,
galactic,
s-
yeah.
So we have this whole SSP thing going on, the different layers. We have disclosure trying to happen. Could you start talking about some of the things that they're trying to infiltrate the disclosure movement, trying to slow it down, trying to shut it up, or anything like that?
Yeah, so this is wild. Um, You know, not only do you have people like Richard Doty out there in the community who he was already outed as being like a CIA or military US government disinfo agent who like made one UFO whistleblower's life so much hell that the poor guy committed suicide. And he's still out there in the community getting on to like, Gaia TV and other platforms, and he's trolls the rest of us, especially those who talk about time travel and secret space programs and breakaway civilizations. Um, and then you've got people who they were in the programs, they're real, but they're unhealed. Have a lot of trauma, and you know, just to say it bluntly, they're still scrambled and mind controlled, and they're being manipulated. And so, people like Eugene Sonny Irvin or Jesse Balk, these are people who have where they've threatened to physically harm, unalive, to use our toddler language we have to use on these censored platforms these days, people in our community, you know, people like myself and Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, or Penny Bradley, we mentioned earlier, have been threatened by these people. Jesse Balk recently got locked up by his local police department, I think in Michigan, after he threatened the police department. Apparently, you threaten us in the community, no one cares. You threaten the local police because you got angry that they, traffic pulled you out of your car on a traffic stop a couple weeks ago, and you threatened to burn down their precinct
Right.
and shoot them all. What do you know? They lock you up. That's up for public record there. Uh, and what they'll do is they will maybe say they're part of our community, and yes, they are, but they'll do things that are so crazy and wild and say things that will then discredit the rest of us. I think Corey Good falls into that category as well, although he's much better put together than Eugene Sonny Irvin and Jesse Balk, for
But
example.
that's the whole point. They want to discredit legitimate whistleblowers, so it makes everybody else doubt it or think there's something not right about it. So, like you said, they'll have fake, probably even fake content creators who create just stuff that contradicts other stuff. So then it becomes confusing, and confusion is a weapon. So,
Absolutely. And then they'll boost those content creators
yeah,
so they get millions and millions and millions of views, although their shows are freaking boring. It's like, no offense, Lex Friedman. But then,
yeah,
meanwhile, there's us talking out the real deal, breakaway civilizations, the different ET factions, what they want, why they're here. The fact that there are also groups that are imposters claiming to be the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And then people are like, well, they run into the imposter groups saying imposter things. And they say, oh, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, that's not real. That doesn't exist
yeah.
because I ran into this fake group over here calling themselves this and I debunked them.
Mhm.
Therefore, there's no such thing. Well, are you sure? You sure, guys? So this is where exercises and discernment really come into
Right.
play. And then finding the best sources online in podcasts like this, and then basically lining them up on your own disclosure map, and then seeing who's saying what. And oh, wow. Veronica Bartolini and Susan Long, they both remember being in something known as a Hulk program and being enhanced cybernetically. And it was very painful because they had their bodies like chopped up and like implants stuck in them by reptilian and other ET technicians and humans who were like under mind control, who didn't care about them, like
Yeah.
pain or suffering. And they both tell me they remember me being in a white lab coat as a technician. Susan says I was like in a skybox with like, looking down on the factory floor. Or Veronica remembers me holding like what do you call it? A clipboard,
Yeah, that's
you
interesting.
know, but neither have any hard feelings towards me. They're not like I was mean or terrible to them. I was just more
Right.
of like a scientist in this project that we were all drafted into. Okay.
But a lot of
Um,
it is trauma based. It's not fun.
No, no. I mean, having stuff jammed in your eyes so that you have like
Yeah.
a camera implant
Mhm.
cybernetically stuck in your head, that's not fun. Or having an arm ripped off so you can have like a gun cannon cyber arm stuck on.
Yeah.
Like, like in the cartoons, it sounds cool, but the reality is it's horrifying if that's being done to you. It's more of a
Yeah.
horror movie than anything. Um,
Well, they have these virtual realities that are so real that these super soldiers or their kids don't know it's real, and they torture them in there. So they're
yes.
experiencing hellish stuff a lot just to get them to split their mind into certain ways to be programmable.
Well, so a
So,
couple of things, probably the AI stuff, it might be
yeah.
more recent and they gotten better and better at doing like the simulation stuff.
Hmm.
And then yes, they do simulations, but then yes, there's also all this stuff really happening, traveling through time and space, and it's not simulated. Just because
Right.
you think, oh, well, they do run people through simulated training and simulation torture or torture by running them through endless simulations while they're all drugged up and stuff. It's, and being beaten or whatever. Um, that's not to say that this other stuff isn't really happening as well. In fact, that was Jesse Balk's line, is like all the abuse and torture down here on the ground, like that's real. But then when it came to like fighting reptilians in space, which he also told me at recall of, that was must have been some kind of AI simulation that they stuck him on, like with a virtual helmet and drugs. That wasn't real. Never mind all the other people who they have similar recall. And then when you have people blind remote view their testimonies, like the Farsight Institute blind remote viewing Tony Rodriguez testimony book, not a science fiction novel, series Colony Cavalier. And then they also remote viewed after that Project Starmaker on blind scientific remote viewing basis. That means the director of the Institute, Dr. Courtney Brown, read series Colony Cavalier. And he's like, holy cow, this is an amazing testimony that this Mr. Tony Rodriguez gave, if it's to be believed. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the name of the book, Series Colony Cavalier. What's the content of Series Colony Cavalier? How real is this? Or what do you see? And I'm going
Yeah.
to stick that into an envelope. And I'm going to write a name, a random number, B825, on that envelope. And then he went to three or four or five of his top remote viewers at the Farsight Institute,
Hmm.
including Intisam, Yemi Janae, Kamaya Dunstan, his own son, Aziz Brown. And he said, I want you to go do remote viewing sessions on your own on target B825. And they all went and you can watch on farsight.prime their sessions, and they basically are describing all the stuff that was happening in Series Colony Cavalier, verifying it wasn't like the contents, it was like they'll verify the reality of what happened that Tony Rodriguez is writing about. And on a blind scientific basis, they are right on top of it.
Yeah, for people who doubt it, this is a real technology. It's even created in these secret programs, right? Teaching
Well,
how people.
The CIA together with the Stanford Research Institute back in like
Yeah.
Cold War period, you know, probably really starting in the 40s and 50s, but we know more about it with Stanford Research Institute and Russell Targ and I'm forgetting his name now, but a couple of the greats in remote viewing. They developed something known as like the Stargate project, and they did things with Bob Monroe at the Monroe Institute doing things like binaural beats or hemisync, where what they'll do is they will sync both the left and right hemispheres of the brain to get first brain coherence and then mind, brain, body, heart coherence. Um, and off of that, now you're opening up the ability to astrally project and view forward and backwards in time and space, or become telepathic, things like that. By first strobing in the left ear, boop, 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 and then in the right ear, and then strobe them close enough that the brain syncs them.
I used to have the machines like that. They made products like that
Yeah,
back in the
absolutely.
days.
Meditation
And
devices. Yeah,
flashing
absolutely.
lights too.
Yeah, I've got one right here actually. Yeah, this thing it's like it can measure,
Yeah.
chart out like your meditation state, and then help you achieve like a theta state
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that's. all of that stuff and that we see in all the science fiction films and
Yeah.
cartoons and comic books, it's a lot of it, it's real, and instead of reality is like limited to like this dull little goldfish bowl, it's really reality is there's so many levels of reality, and God's source wants to experience so much of everything that almost anything we can imagine, it's real somewhere
Hmm.
or has been real, which if it has been or will be, it is. That's why there's nothing new under this sun or any other.
And this is basically our potential as a human race. This is what we're supposed to be doing, not being limited to a fishbowl, not realizing we're multidimensional and that I mean, I call my audience holy ones all the time because we are. We're these like amazing, brilliant beings connected to Source God. We're expressions of God. But we have so many narratives out here trying to demonizing the human race, trying to put down the human race. But that's one of my missions is to help remind people of what they truly are. So,
Well, all beings, Farsight Prime calls us infinite spiritual beings. I think
mhm,
it is ISBEs. Okay, I've heard Dr. Courtney Brown say a lot. And, as such, we are everybody, on planet, off planet. We're all infinite spiritual beings. We're all a spark of source God. So we're
mhm,
all have infinite capacity because God's source is infinite capacity. And therefore, we all are infinitely powerful. But because the Earth has been reduced to this state of prison planetdom for at least 230,000 years, the last cycle or whatever, like great cycle, not just 10,000 year cycles.
yeah,
Um, we've been hijacked. Now humanity is at a time of what many of us in the spiritual disclosure community would call the ascension. The ascension that Earth is already transitioning from third to fourth to fifth density consciousness in the main. She's already ascended, and humanity is ascending in consciousness with Mother Earth from third kind of monkey mind beating each other over the head for resources to fourth density where we're telepathic, but are we using it right? Oh, fifth density, like we're like telepathic and empathic and vibing with each other, not like a hive mind, but we have a group mind, but also individuality. And that's how I kind of envision it, and how what I've gathered from talking to various people and like the Dolores Cannon type stuff.
yeah. Yeah, it's we talk about it as ascension also being a very personal thing where humans develop their spiritual journey, they're working on their DNA, their original DNA. They're activating dormant DNA. So that's the goal of trying to awaken because you're reclaiming more, you're remembering more, you're basically not becoming, you're reclaiming what you already are. So it just became human race fell to a certain extent, so now it became dormant. Now we're trying to reclaim that dormant potential.
Exactly. People talk about activating the dormant DNA.
Mhm.
At 90% of our DNA, it's all balled up, isn't it's not
Well,
junk
they call it
DNA.
junk DNA, but it's
Right.
not junk.
No, it's our ability to activate our Merkaba star vehicles, star tetrahedron
Right.
vehicles to travel around time and space and communicate with all of our loved ones anywhere, anytime.
That's spirit tech. We don't actually need UFO to go to another dimension.
Right. And so, some people talk about how there's the organic evolutionary route and then a
Hmm.
technological evolutionary route. And which route is humanity going to go? And I kind of think ideally, I don't know if it's ideal, but I kind of think the way I'd like to see it personally would be like an 80-20 split, where it's like 80% we're spiritual, but we do have some technology and cool gadgets and toys and nifty things, 20%. But then generally spiritually, hopefully we'll outgrow that stuff and even in the long run. But I kind of see that path. That would be ideal. Right now, of course, we're on a much more technologically slanted path, and we're going to suffer as a result. And then that's like the blue Hopi prophecy, the blue Kachina prophecy of the Hopi.
Yeah, we're just meant to go a certain route. but they're trying to introduce all these, I would say, reverse light systems, or even just these religions that have false creeds that aren't really God's original intention. So we get a lot of dark agendas that people fall into. So,
Right. They're very unnatural, lacking Christ consciousness, lacking
right.
soul. And that's a lot of the transhumanism agenda. And, I'll call out Bashar. If you go to his website, was it encourages people to roll up their sleeves and to listen to the recommendations of the experts at the World Health Organization and,
Oh,
CDC,
I
stuff like
see.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah. I went to his website months ago to confirm that for myself, or maybe it was last year by now, but I was horrified.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, is he talking to a society collective? Probably. Is that a darker transhumanism collective that has their own interests in mind and they're trying to steer us in their
Mhm.
direction? Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. So is he fake? No. But do you take him at face value? No. And that's why.
Yeah. So, what do you say is part of this? It's called Project Oblivion.
So Project Oblivion is the way we discovered that name or uncovered it is Olivia James, also known as the Gray Mouse. She has an amazing TikTok um a channel. She's known as the Gray Mouse because that's one of her alters. Basically, a personality that can like sneak in anywhere, observe anything, but not be considered any threat at all, but be super dangerous, but sneak out.
So she's been
Okay.
in the program.
Oh yeah, she's definitely in the program. She was
Okay.
brought in because as a star seed, one of her gifts or one of her past lives, apparently, it's not even a star seed, really, it was as a jinn, a lower vibrating type spiritual magical being. And because she had that incarnation in this life, it gives her one of the more unique, or harder to find abilities to go into trance mediumship for long periods of time with lower vibration entities, including demons, for long periods of time, like hours on end. And that's what she'd be hired out to the elites because they wanted to talk to their demons they worshipped through her, and she could come out of it unharmed. She could go under unharmed and come out unharmed. Her testimony is amazing. Olivia's a good friend, and Misha Johnston, and we did like a Zoom online meeting where Misha, she runs Starseed support groups. She's been doing it for decades now, and she is also very good at hypnotic regression. I'm not sure it's QHHT, what specific type of hypnosis techniques
Mhm.
she does, but she basically regressed Olivia, who because she has that ability. It's very easy to get her to that trance state.
Yeah.
And then we had two main targets for a session. And then I was kind of like the monitor where, Misha is helping Olivia to focus and then to be able to connect out wherever in the quantum Akashic fields, if you want to say it like that. And then I'm like asking questions and directing, hey, we want to talk to these people and this is what we want to ask. And once we reach these people, let's have a Q&A. And so first we said, we want to reach out to the negative handler types who are messing with all of us in the community because we know we're being targeted individuals, or in my labs, military abductees. We're getting hit with directed energy weapons or getting things hacked or having the voice to skull used on like, if not us, like our friends and family who are then triggered to attack us some way. True
Hmm.
stories out there, um, testimonies. And basically, Olivia was brought, I don't know if it's in the astral or remote viewing or she bilocates psychically. She was brought to a room, basically, or an office type area in like an office building somewhere in like around Atlanta, Georgia, filled with a group of mostly men who were part of something known as the Princeton Group, but they were around Atlanta, Georgia. And these are basically, I was joking, yeah, they're like drinking stale, bad, shitty coffee in their farty office, with their computer setups and they're, sitting in their chairs psychically and technologically given caseloads to mess with us. And she was tuned into them. And she first entered into the mind of one of them. Um, I forget his name, might have been Jared. And then because they're all psychically trained, Jared and the others, they said, wait a second, there's someone mind probing me. And then their supervisor, they all got together, a group of these mostly men, around their guy Jared, who Olivia was like in his brain, and she was now talking through Jared, telepathically linked,
Hmm.
speaking through Jared to all these guys. Okay. And, we said, okay, they knew who we were, and so we want to know who you guys are. And, we want to know who's your supervisor here. Apparently it's a guy named Dennis Pearson. And, it's white guy, American. And apparently the deal is these guys, like they masquerade in like to the normal world. Oh, like why would I have a briefcase with like case files with like people's name and like medical records and all their home addresses and stuff on it, personal information? It's because they masquerade as healthcare executives,
Hmm.
and oh, this is my caseload. These are patient files or whatever. Okay. And they gather in these office buildings or wherever they do, and they are very powerfully psychically trained. And it might not even be them, it might be their alters who are basically being programmed. And they're also bribed, apparently, to attack the rest of us in the community who are fighting for disclosure. And they've been ramping up what they call Project Oblivion as a retaliation campaign against everyone who is whistleblowing, throwing conferences, doing podcasts, writing books, you name it, to get the word out. Because what,
So, what kind of things would they do? Like, okay, it's like it
oh,
almost sounds
oh,
like a
well,
coven of witches.
some of them are in the occult and maybe
Yeah,
part of covens because there's a lot of that between the underground mafia and
yeah.
the intelligence agencies and the cults and the bloodline families and all of that and the covens, like they are the temples, they are
Right.
all linked up. I mean, we're not all linked up, but there's a giant network. It's a one big club, and we ain't part of
Mm.
it. And we don't want to, I don't want to be part of that club. It's a
It's like
losers club.
psychic soldiers using their abilities to harm and
Yeah. So
spy.
they'll
Yeah.
do things like um maybe send people in a van outside of your house with a directed energy weapon, or maybe they can now do it through the cell towers
Yeah.
and literally zap you and target you, specifically your frequency, and hit you that way. This probably it's called scalar wave technology is one way of like hitting people with a quantum or through cell tower 5G type technology or through our cell phones or through our TVs. They can hit us with strobes and flashes and pulses, things like that, or through our smartwatches. They can make it burn and pulse us, make us more liable to get cancer. People like Penny Bradley, she got zapped apparently like in her kidneys or something, and then she got like an MRI or a CAT scan, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, why do you have symptoms of internal burning? How do you burn someone on the inside? Well, you fry them like with
Yeah.
a microwave beam. That's how you cook someone from the inside. That's
How
how
do
a lot
you
of
how do you bring down two towers?
right, well, directed energy weapons and nanothermite and
Yeah.
the
Right.
controlled demolition and
Mm.
perhaps DEW. I'm not sure on that yet, but perhaps.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
But they're definitely using energy and frequency as weapons. And
Absolutely. Or they'll use voice to skull. The weaker people are, the less work and you've done, the less self-insight, the bigger your ego is, the easier it is to inflate. The more negative your worldview, the more traumatized you are without having done the healing self-work and
basically
processing.
the lower vibration you are.
Yeah, the easier it is for them to hit you
Mhm.
with voice to skull or telepathy and
Mhm.
get you into negative ideations. And so I'll give an example. Um, Beautiful gal in our community is a friend and of mine, and she's been in the programs, and apparently she's a trauma twin of Drago Reed, good friend of mine, in the programs. And she was telling me how there was like a weekend like last year or I don't know how long ago where over the course of that Saturday and Sunday, she's getting these voices in her head telling her, Drago is your enemy. He did this to you. You have to out him. You need to do this to him, blah, 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 blah. And this synthetic telepathy, they have synthetic telepathy now. They can like read our minds with technology and decode that and then interact with our thoughts that way. Okay. Oh, I can decode this person's thoughts and then I can beam thoughts. So now it's two-way or just straight old telepathy. You have a psychic operative acting on a targeted individual, psychically, telepathically communicating with that person. Okay. And, you know, to her credit, our friend, she said, no, I'm not going to attack Drago. He's my friend. You know, I love Drago. Why would I'm not going to do that? Go away.
Yeah.
That's just about Saturday into Sunday. She says after a while on that Sunday or whatever, the voice just stopped. Okay, gave up. 15 minutes later, she goes online on Facebook, and there's this huge post ranting about by this person named Ash Bray, who really is that's a fake name of a stalker who's probably in the programs and is one of these messed up people who then is listening to the voice to Skull and it was attacking Drago and Laura Eisenhower because they were doing this amazing podcast together at the time.
Hmm.
Okay. And
That's crazy, man.
when people do good work in the community, we come under more attack
Hmm.
after our conference, where some people they said they experienced some types of attacks and interference, but we had a lot of protection as well on our conference.
Which is
You
very
know,
important.
it's very important. Um, Spiritual, angelic, ET, God source, Sasquatch, they're also Star Nation people who are positive, they're wanting to help.
Well, you
Okay.
can imagine there's agents that go to these um, events and find out as much as they can who's attending, and so they make a list and then they start attacking them or whatever, right?
Right. And they try to pit people against each other by hitting us with voice
Yeah.
to skull. Oh, that person doesn't like you. That's not your friend, and blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Um, and so um but after my full disclosure conference that I last through in this July 2025 and the previous one in 2024, people were a bit attacked, but we had a lot of protection. But after I think it was a 2024 conference, there was something called Contact at Sea. I forget which conference it was, but Misha Johnston, she said that prior to that it's like a cruise where they have like disclosure conference
Hmm.
by some of our great friends with like the Onyx work network like with Margie K for example in her community. She's really great psychic, powerful. um uh there was one of the people who was supposed to present. I don't know their name, but apparently they were physically knocked down from out of nowhere and they hurt their hip or their leg so bad they didn't make that trip. And then Misha herself,
Like
uh,
telekinesis?
yeah, right. Or they open up a portal right behind you when you're not looking and they're invisible and they push you down.
Hmm.
When it comes to ET tech, that level of what we're talking about, I put all, I don't know, all bets are off. They could be anything. They could use any modality. They got so many ways to mess with us, so they use them. Okay. So don't be paranoid and be in your strength, people out there. And we overcome. And every time they attack us and we overcome it, we become stronger one way or another.
Yeah,
Um,
don't go to fear. Fear is a
yeah,
very
right now.
powerful.
But literally what happened to Misha Johnston herself, she was a presenter on that Contact at Sea.
Hmm.
As she was entering into her cabin with her cabin mate,
Hmm.
a fellow lady who was experienced, to go on Contact at Sea. It sounds exciting. I wish I'd got to go. Misha was literally knocked down to the ground physically in front of her fellow cabin mate, was like stunned. And Misha was knocked down so hard, she hurt her back. And she said she was lucky she found someone on board who's like an acupuncturist,
Hmm.
uh, or a chiropractor who like helped her with her back and with a back brace and worked on her, that by the time she had to present like 2 or 3 days later from the very beginning of that cruise, she was able to present. But that is little physical retaliation right there. And what Dennis,
Yeah.
when Olivia was inside Jared or whoever talking to Dennis, the leader, the supervisor of the Princeton group, he was telling her and us, me and Misha about Project Oblivion. Basically, what he said is, you whistleblowers for the longest time have been laughed at and ignored by the public and tomatoes thrown at you, called
Yeah.
tinfoil hat, stupid idiots, blah, blah, blah. But as of late, the disclosure movement, I call it the full disclosure movement,
Yeah.
you all have been getting out so much information to so many people in such a way that enough of those people are starting to pay attention that it's starting to
Hmm.
mess up their operations. And
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Not only is there the public spotlight being shined, but as people are starting to share things like how to call back your altars and soul fragments that are out there populating the slave armies up there being run by the cabal and the negative ETs, particularly the reptilians and Anunnaki. They're not all negative, but the negative ones. Um, where some people are depopulating their army because as you call back a soul fragment, if you have a body, a clone body in an avatar or a soul fragment or uh, altar of yours in a clone body or avatar, and you call back that soul fragment, that life spark essence of you that was driving that clone is brought back to you. That clone falls down effectively
Wait,
dead.
brother, I have a question.
Yeah,
These people can break you into many altars.
multiple, hundreds,
So
thousands.
so you're saying these altars can each go into a different clone?
Yeah, like you could have 20 different altars right now,
Yeah.
and they could be in 20 different places. They're they're
OMG,
they're
man.
altar soul fragments. And that's where a lot of people they feel really drained. They're constantly having nightmares. They're getting schizophrenia and stuff like
Because
that. It's
it's
not,
happening simultaneously in
yes.
their different time zones or
Right.
timelines.
A lot of people with gender dysphoria, that's some reason people
Wow.
have avatars, soul shards of theirs, altars that are the opposite sex being used as sex slaves.
Yeah.
How much do you think that messes you up?
Well, isn't that what they did with the celebrities? They make clones of the celebrities so you can pay to have sex with, let's say, Beyonce or whoever.
Britney Spears, they'll take
Yeah.
they'll take her consciousness, stick it in a clone body, and then
Hmm.
that clone body gets abused for however long, and then it is
Hmm.
super spiritually and psychically, emotionally damaging to Britney,
Yeah.
obviously. So I hate her music, but I love Britney. I'm all for free Britney.
Yeah.
Yeah, free Britney.
Free Britney.
Free Britney. You have free Britney. If you're part of the free Britney movement, please put it in the chat.
But a lot of stuff has come out about the clones. So, I mean, it's crazy I mean, this is all demonic, crazy stuff. I mean, it's just horrendous, but we're trying to awaken humanity and to realize what's going on with the kids and the children and what's going on with the ETs and all this technology. That's why we're having conversations like this, right, brother?
Absolutely, because we don't get it all out there in the daylight to disinfect everything, and for people like, oh my gosh, that's really happening under our feet and
Yeah.
above us in the skies and are all around us, and most of us, 9 out of 10 are asleep, don't know it. Um, maybe 1 out of 10 knows something's wrong, but we don't really know what's wrong. Well,
Mhm.
full disclosure is how we know not just what's wrong, but then in knowing what's wrong, that illuminates the way to solutions. We run into the airy fairy factions who are like, oh, don't talk about deep underground bases and ritual abuse and this and that. You're
You mean
lowering the vibration and
the
you're
love,
scaring
light, and
people.
clueless?
Yeah, I call it the love and light loser brigade.
Well,
And then it's not love LOVE, it's LUVNLITE, love and light.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you can't protect yourself if you're not aware of all the dark things that are happening. I mean, it's not this idea that you become dark by talking about the dark. That's ridiculous. Just like you tell your children about the dangers of the world, to protect them. You want to learn about the dark crap that's going on so you can protect yourself. So,
100%.
yeah. But
100%.
yeah, uh, Oblivion, that's insane, man. So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, Project Blue. Well, let me tell you about the other group we talked.
yeah.
We tasked Olivia the Gray Mouse with then reaching out to because we got tired of reaching talking to them in their farty office. And actually, what happened also is Olivia got psychically attacked where and then so she withdrew from them because
Yeah.
like she saw them like trying to like reach their hand like at her third eye, and you can attack people psychically and cause harm, whether psychic harm, emotional or physical actual harm.
Well,
I mean, or harm the actual physical
they
rather.
use people like that to protect certain high, like secrets. Like they will actually have beings or psychic people trained to actively protect that area, right?
Right, deep underground bases
Yeah.
have these basically psychic goon squads
Yeah.
where if they detect you trying to remote view or astrally project into their
Right.
base, they will countermeasure
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So you want to hear one of those
Yeah.
testimonies?
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I've got a buddy who's going to remain unnamed,
Of
in
course.
a
Of
community
course.
very, very powerfully psychic. And he decided, okay, I think I want to go visit one of these underground bases. And so if you before he went to sleep, it helps if you want to astrally project somewhere before you lay down to set your intention of where you want to go and what you want to do. And remember I said astral projection can be dangerous?
Yeah.
Well, apparently he locked onto one of these deep underground bases and he basically went into it. And while I was in it, he was in a section of it where it was just lots of these vats of what looked like acid, like in a Batman movie of like what he dumped the Joker into. Okay, this industrial chemicals. And he just remembers being like on this walkway and like looking down into this vat. And all of a sudden he was like this is in the astral, mind you. He's not there physically. Astrally he's there. In the astral,
Mhm.
he's literally grabbed and shoved down into this
Whoa.
vat of acid and held in it. And he said it felt like burning.
Hmm.
Okay. And then he like woke up the next day. And then when I saw him, like he showed me like his skin is all ashy and gray. Almost like he got like really bad sunburn and you get that like skin, like that layer of skin that you can like scratch off and just flakes off.
So it made an effect in the 3D world.
Yes, and his eyesight was blurry. And his eyesight was messed up and blurred for weeks afterwards.
Wow.
And he had this weird unfocused issue to it. And then astrally, he was like all messed up. Like he couldn't just like remote view and astrally project whenever he wanted to. He was like beaten up. He was like all like
Well,
dumped into an acid vat and just
he
like
probably learned his lesson, I hope.
well, what he in talking to more skilled, experienced remote viewers, they said
Mhm.
what he did was the equivalent as a remote viewer, he did as the equivalent or astral projector of walking up to like the gates of Area 51 in
Yeah.
broad daylight,
Uh-huh.
naked, thinking that like they can't see you, and
Right.
then they let you in, and then they let you in and kick your ass.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what they
Yeah.
did to him.
Yeah, dude. And I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. I mean, you know how they train these people to be these psychic soldiers? We got to have the good side, making psychic
We
soldiers.
are. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing. That's exactly what we're doing. That's every, people who download the Gateway programs. That's like from the Monroe Institute, and you can learn all this, which the CIA, we're talking about with this Stargate project they developed. And so, it's good enough for the military. Of course, they put out all these articles to discredit remote viewing. Oh, it never really worked. That is a bunch of BS. It works. There are people in our community. Um, I'll give you an example. Our friend Jenny Lee, Psychic Seer,
Hmm.
shout out. Um, she uh, gets people referred her all the time for like missing people cases or murder cases. And she had a case where um, a mom reached out to her, and apparently her son was found hung in a local park in their town,
Wow.
and it was ruled a suicide. And she's like, my son did not commit suicide. No way, no how.
Mm.
But it was a cold case, and the police
Cool.
ruled it was a suicide. What are you going to
Yeah.
do? Well, she reaches out to Jenny Lee. Jenny Lee is remote viewing this, and she says to the mother, I'm picking up not only your son, but these other three young men. And she describes those young men. And the mom's like, I know who that is. Blah, blah, blah. And what Jenny Lee saw was that her son, the mom's son, and the three young men, they were all doing drugs together. And the son died. He overdosed. And the other three dudes, instead of being like, hey, guy overdosed, let's report it, they didn't want to get in trouble. So they rigged it up to make it look like he hung himself. Okay.
Wow.
And apparently, um, the mom went to the police and they brought those three gentlemen back in for questioning. And I don't know where it went from there, but that's the level, that's what remote viewing
Yeah.
can do. Like that's one example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that the government says doesn't exist while they're doing it themselves. Right?
All the time. I mean, that's part of how they target people, I believe, is they remote view us. They
Yeah.
bilocate. There's a member in our community who he was abusing his remote viewing community capabilities by basically peeping Tomming women in our community while they were in the bathroom or in their bedrooms. And I asked some of the women in the community, like Amaria's sweet, or oh hey, thanks for the support, Georgina. To our brother Christos over here. Um, yeah, thank you. Um, I asked, for example, Amaria Sweet and Susan Long are two of the women in our community who are subjected to this BS, and they made no secret of it. And I
Yeah.
said to them, and to Penny Bradley, Penny, and like Penny's like, who wants to remote view me? I'm like 60 years older. I mean, she's now 70. Like what that's so like, come on, like what the heck? Um, I'm like, what's it like? How do you know? It's like first you get a feeling that someone's watching you. Like we all know what that feeling's like. And then if you're a fellow remote viewer psychic, because you have the ability activated too, you'll look over and you'll see this person's head like floating over the crown molding or whatever, like towards your ceiling, and you'll see the head poking
Yeah.
down like etheric, like a ghost head floating like on your crown molding, like looking down at you. And they're like,
Yeah.
get out of
Yeah.
here, because they knew who the person was. And
Yeah.
they outed this person. This person has a reputation in our community for being a remote viewing peeping Tomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surely there's going to be people who abuse those abilities for for their own service to self.
Well, there's a lot of spiritual karmic damage and retribution to be said for that. That is a
Yeah.
violation of free will. There is, at least at this level, certain levels of privacy that we take for granted and consider a personal right. And so to remote view the women in our community, like that's not cool. Or to even and beyond that, they can energetically sexually assault females in our community, and that
Yeah.
happened, you know, um, to one of the people in our community, and yeah, they're obviously not happy about that.
Yeah. Are you okay with questions?
I love questions.
We have Mary Jane. She's asking, do we have spirit guides like guardian angel? And if we do, why they let us be deceived and manipulated?
So we all have spirit guides and probably angels as well. Um, you can fire your spirit guides, everybody, and upgrade them. You don't stick with the same spirit guides apparently your whole life. And as you grow and evolve as a human being, as a soul in this form, you should probably be upgrading your spirit guides. And not all spirit guides are good guides. Just like you can hire a guide to take you through the Amazon, some are going to be great. They're going to save your ass and get you through the jungle, and then others they might ditch you, give you bad advice, give you advice that leads to bad things, right? Um, So there's that. There are negative entities and beings that will pose as spirit guides in your best interest. So yeah, there's spirit guides, but they're really corrupted, distorted, not spirit guides claiming to be spirit guides. You've got a lot of that. Um, you've got spirit guides who their job isn't to hold our hands and prevent us from making every single mistake. Their job is whatever mistake or right choice, I mean, that's relative anyway, whatever choice we make, that we have hopefully the right perspective and they can offer us that perspective and guidance. And then it's on us to be in touch and listen to our spirit guides and our higher selves and really God's source.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that, man. I always say, you don't always have to rely on another spirit guide. You always go within to your inner Christos, your own connection to source God. That's one of the things we really talk about. But I wanted to ask you, if the public suddenly learned about anti-gravity, med beds and portal systems, what do you think the biggest shock would be?
So, the other side, the cabal, they run the line that, oh, we would freak out and,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
start looting and rioting. Oh my God. It looked like, something out of the Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen, like it's okay, everybody. And there's like everything's like, on
yeah,
fire and people like crashing into each other. But really, what would happen is we would demand that med beds become available to our relatives and family and our pets who are dying now, and that we clean up all this geoengineering chemtrail crap now, because there's environmental cleanup technology probably to be had
hmm,
as well. As free energy. And now, okay, free energy. Now we have no electricity bills and no pollution from generating electricity. And then, oh, by the way, we can all run plenty of appliances night and day, all we want with no harm, no foul. That would be amazing. Oh, and we could also have anti-gravity and we could like fly around wherever we want and maybe have set up controlled portal technology so we could like, eat lunch in Paris if we want, and then maybe go to the beach in
yeah,
Cabo and then come home to northern Nevada or wherever. All those things will be clamored for.
hmm,
And then also, I totally neglected to mention this. Really, it's getting all the children and slaves out of the slavery and out of those bases or wherever they're being held. Number one, putting all the perpetrators on trial and bringing them to justice, whatever that is.
yeah,
Okay, that's to be decided by us as a human society, based on higher shared principles and
hmm,
just laws that we agree upon. And then releasing the technologies. But there's a multi-step thing, and it's not going to happen in clean steps. It's going to happen in waves in different places, but it's going to happen. And the more organized we are, the more cohesive we are, the more we stand, not just united to be united. Oh, we're all kumbaya together, but no, like those of us who agree on this and this is the way it is, we're all united and we're providing leadership and we're going to take it to the next level. But if you can't agree with us on if you think all ETs are demons, for example, sorry, you're not part of our disclosure movement. Like I know you got a lot of people with you, but it's not kumbaya over here. Like we're going to speak what's really going on, the truth, the whole
yeah.
truth, and nothing but the truth. And as we go, the leadership and the organization and all of us foot soldiers will rise to the forefront, and it's only going to get better and better from here.
Yeah, I believe in humanity. I believe that we can handle the truth and we need the truth in order to progress. I think that's just a scapegoat so they can keep on controlling us. But there was another question.
Oh, real
Um,
quick, Enlighten said accepting applications for new spirit guides. Well
yeah.
then, my recommendation to you, Enlighten, is set your intention with the highest, greatest good in mind for yourself and all
Mhm.
involved, consistent with God's source, no conflicting agendas, and think about what you're trying to achieve spiritually and in your life, what you want to manifest in the here and now, and then call your guides.
Yeah. Excellent advice, brother. Tola has a question. What changed in the last decade or so? Did the world end in 2012? It's gotten so much worse.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Kirsten Loves, for the contribution. And then to answer that question, in 2012, it was
Yes.
the end of the world as we know it. Okay. And I feel great. It's basically the apocalypse, which means the unveiling or the great revealing. And so I'd say 2012 was that point that the Mayans and others saw in our timeline where we're entering this more positive space of higher vibration and light and frequency where the evil is being revealed and being burned out and people are awakening and our abilities are coming online, our gifts, fruits of the spirit, if you will, are coming online for us to enjoy and manifest. And it's happening at a time when this is really the low point. It's kind of like I kind of think of it as I use this analogy of Miley Cyrus in that video, like a wrecking ball, and she's like swinging through naked
Yeah.
like a wrecking ball, and like we're the good, and we've been dragged from the good all the way into this distorted mess,
Hmm.
distorted world, and they want to swing the wrecking ball up and hit the wall. And if they could hit the wall and break through that wall, they would have won. They would have gotten us into their
Yeah.
Loserfarian timeline. But instead, they hit the wall, bonk, and they bounced off. Dud. Now they lost. They have not won. They failed to take us down that loser timeline. We're going to win in this timeline. But we're still swung all the way over here into the Loserfarian side of like tainted reality, distorted, brainwashing, and we need to swing all the way back out. So yes, the bad lost. Yes, the good guys are going to win. That's the good news. But we still have a shit ton of shitty jungle and swamp that we
Yeah.
need to swing back through and heal and cleanse ourselves
Mhm.
of to then get back to like, yay, golden era, 1,000 years of peace.
Yeah, we got left with a bunch of mess to t clean up and a lot of healing to do.
Big mess.
So,
Oh, God.
what do you think a truly transparent disclosure would look like? F full, unfiltered truth.
So when we look at movements, and this is kind of like organizer 101, there's like you can have movements where it's what we call a top down, where it's like the authorities and the government and centralized leadership, they're going to disclose everything. And that'd be like the White House and the Trump administration or whoever and the Pentagon coming out and we're releasing everything with Elon Musk and putting it on free file servers for everybody to download. Get your anti-gravity, schematics here. Okay. That's not going to happen. But that would be called top down. What we, or I envision it and others in the movement, we see it as bottom up movement where we are organizing the broad masses of people so far across the community, across so many strata of society from the ground up, demanding the freeing of the children and naming the names and the Epstein files, which have already been released, leaked. We know all these names. We can publicly shame these people, demand they be put on trial, hire private investigators to dig up dirt, have remote viewers and psychics and positive angelic people, people who work with positive angelics checking this out and really putting the pressure to the point where it forces the top to then do their jobs as we're rounding up the worst evildoers and consolidating. And so there's a real process to this that most people are like, how's this going to work? Because they can envision it as like one giant step. That ain't how it's going to work. It's like all these small
Yeah.
steps, but when you coordinate them all and you grow it organically, it can then build into something that snowball that becomes the avalanche.
Yeah. Well, on a personal level, how has this research or experience changed the way you see our world?
Um, well, I mean, it's totally I'd say, a lot of us, I think we come in and it's like the world is super shiny and there's infinite possibilities. And then like adolescence really kicks in and we just get like the smackdown and, made fun of. And no, you didn't really see a shadow being. That was just a nightmare. And no, you didn't really predict grandma was going to die. That was just a coincidence, whatever, all those things. And you're like, okay, well, fine, let's focus on whatever people focus on, martial arts practice after school and, you know, uh, trying to get into like, focus on how to get their SAT scores all high, you know, so we kind of go back into the veil of forgetting and being in this mainstream illusion. And then since 2012, especially, it's been a process of reawakening back out of that illusion. We got to experience coming in shiny, being beaten down and kind of brainwashed a bit, and then now undoing the brainwashing and reawakening. That's kind of where I see us now, and
Yeah.
2012 marked a lot of that shift.
Yeah, brother. Can you tell people about your Full Disclosure Now conference? And when did you start doing that?
Yeah, I'll share my screen here and bring
Sure.
everyone to my website. Um, so what happened was, in addition to listening to podcasts like Journey to Truth and Typical Skeptic podcast and others, um, I went to like Contact in the Desert, for example,
Hmm.
and
I
Stairway to
saw
the
you there,
Stars.
brother. I saw
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And a couple years ago, I went, like, was like my first year, and that was a huge eye opener for me.
Yeah.
And I realized this stuff is real because, I'm an organizer advocate with like almost now 20 plus years of advocacy experience working one-on-one with people and grilling them and putting together timelines and, getting their testimonies inside and out. So I have a working understanding of it.
Hmm.
And I realized, wow, this stuff is real. These people, the vast majority are not making it up. And then a lot of them are talking about the same experiences and then they don't even know each other, but I talked to both of them. Okay. So I'm pretty sure like there's something going on.
So these guys are people that are speaking at your conferences, right?
Yeah, James Bartley, he's been in the programs and knows a lot, especially about reptilian ETs and their agenda. Yemi Jinneh is one of the top remote viewers at the Farsight Institute, who they were told last year, November 13th, during one of their Farsight Prime ET boardroom meetings, they're told by their ET contacts telepathically, hey, you're going to see our spacecraft in your skies all around the planet very soon.
Wow. Okay.
Feel free to announce it. They announced it November 15th last year, 2024. November 18th, we had worldwide sightings of UFOs in our skies. The lamestream media, any credit that they gave, which is very little, they gave to Cliff High and his AI algorithm for detecting spike blips of mentions and searches on the internet. Didn't say anything about Farsight Institute. And then the mainstream media pivoted to drones in New Jersey, which is a big distraction
Yeah, of
to
course.
basically have negative drones spraying people and animals with noxious fumes and causing fear and distraction. Meanwhile, we've got still to this day, you can go outside right now and watch craft powering up and down. I see it with my own eyes. You can see even during broad daylight craft in like clouds and like all the other clouds are still, but there'll be like one cloud will be like moving around more. I've seen videos of that.
Yeah.
Or here in Winnemucca, both my one business partner and I, giant cloud over the town because we're on a mountainside overlooking down on town. If you were in town, you're just looking up at the cloud. You see a cloud bank. For us, we're on the mountainside looking down on town and right looking kind of level with a cloud.
Yeah.
And looking at this cloud bank, there was like cloud, and then like an area of cloud is almost like brushed away, and it looked like a hull of a silver spaceship. It was like perfectly straight curved line hull.
Wow.
Okay, and then it's like clouds again. And then I said to my business partner, "You see what I was seeing? Like, does it look like a hull of a spaceship just poking through that?" It's like the shape of like a metal, like just perfectly formed, like curved, like shape, not like cloud, like puffy and patchy. And he saw it, yes. And and
Yeah.
and this person is very psychically gifted as well, by the way. So yes.
When's your next conference?
I'm not sure because it's either going to be in Sedona. Right now, we're wrestling the banks. There's a lot of people casting black magic against
Yeah.
us, and who do not want to see us succeed. not
Hmm.
just Project Oblivion, but just haters and trolls who literally will hire people on like Etsy to cast black magic spells. No joke. Okay.
Which
And
is a
it's
thing, by
lame.
the way, which
It's
is
a
a
thing.
thing.
It's a thing. And it's bad. I don't recommend it. The law of karma,
Definitely.
you're gonna get
Yeah.
hit three, seven, 10 times more or whatever. Don't do it. It's not worth
Some
it.
people don't believe in karma, but that's part of the universal concept, brother.
That's like
Right?
that's like believing I can punch a wall and not hurt my fist, or punch another
Right.
person and not
Yeah.
hurt my fist. There's
Yeah.
going to be some kind of this is something. I mean, and sometimes you do have to defend yourself, but then now that's not karma, right? If you're self-defense, it's okay to, you know, hit someone if your life or someone else's life depends on it,
Of course.
but it's different. Um, so yeah,
S-
we've been running into a lot of roadblocks trying to get in our way of launching the Full Disclosure Network, an online platform
Mhm.
we're launching. I've got an amazing team and many people here in the community they're all going to be part of this network.
Oh, we met Tom Althouse.
Yeah, he's an original author of the Matrix series that
Mhm.
they stole from him.
Yeah, I interviewed
He
him.
Oh yeah. Okay, there you go. I only have to go in that then. Yeah, I seen his hard copy of his
Me
script he
too, yeah.
wrote in 1993. Yeah.
Plus, he's
Um,
got a copyright reference number. He took it to the copyright way before other people saying claim it, right?
Yes, and he also has a hard copy of the fight kung fu breakdown scenes,
Hmm.
separately stamped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he wrote that in 1993, presented it to Joel Silver and Warner Brothers in 1995, and then in 90, or 96, and then 1999 was when the first Matrix came out, and he was
Mhm.
like, "What the?" Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got some going on in Florida too, don't you?
Right. Well, the last two have been in Florida. I'm 90% sure we're doing it one more year in Florida, once again at the lovely Serrata Beach Resort at St. Pete Beach, right there on the beach. People are like, where would you want to be? July in Florida? It's hot there. Well, yeah, it's hot, but we're on the beach that you literally walk out of the conference, the hotel or the resort, right
Mhm.
onto the beach and into the water.
Yeah.
And then we
Well,
let
I
yeah.
hope to be there.
Yes. So if we do it again this year, it'll be again St. Pete Beach, probably the middle of July 2026. I still have to lock in everything, but
Yeah.
I'm a 9 out of 10, 90% sure that that's what we're gonna do.
All right.
Yeah. And that's it. Full disclosure.live and full disclosure um, movement.org and full disclosure dot network. Those are three of the web domains that we have now. And I've fallen a little bit behind on updating all of this, but this is all in the works, people. You can find me on Facebook as well. Reach out to me directly, especially if you're an experiencer. Not, if you want to say hi and you like my work, great. Please follow me. I've got only very limited friends list
Yeah.
slots left. I hate how Facebook limits us to only 5,000.
Yeah, no kidding.
But if you are more interested in like, boots on the ground, organizing, getting out your testimony, or someone with the testimony and they're trying to get their testimony out and they
Yeah.
need a network, here we are. Reach out to me, message me directly on Facebook, Brian Tseng, and add my nickname, please, which is Solar Bee. So I'm Brian saying the Solar Bee. That's my nickname or call sign. And then
And
here's like my bee logo, kind
yeah.
of. Yeah.
And you got your Wonder Dog with you too when you go these.
Yeah, I got Winnie the Wonder Dog. Hey, Winnie, come here. Winnie, come here. Yeah, she's a little afraid. She's hiding
That's
under
okay. You don't have to bother
she's
her.
hiding under the desk right now. Yeah, she doesn't like to be on the screen. The dogs, just so you know, they consider smartphones and TV screens and monitors
Uh,
devil windows.
yeah.
Because they can see the negative entities that are also being beamed out of some of this stuff and they don't like it. So even if I'm like on FaceTime and I'm far away and my housemates, one who's an animal communicator and telepathic, they'll try to put me on the phone with them. They'll say, I'm like, why don't they look at me on the phone? Like, don't they miss me, their daddy? You know, like sometimes I'm away and Winnie's still here with the other family members and business partners. And he'll translate. It's not that she doesn't love you, Brian. It's just they don't. Winnie and the others, they don't want to look directly at the devil window. They hate it. If
Yeah.
anyone try it, hold your phone up. Most dogs will not like it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, animals are psychic. They perceive these things. They know, things, some things that we don't perceive. So,
Or when people say, "Hey Alexa," like your baby drops to the ground, there's like videos of that.
wow.
They're sensing something is
Yeah.
coming online or a beam or something. They're feeling it and they don't like it, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we leave, can you take another question?
Oh yeah, I love questions and I've got time.
Oh, okay. Um,
Actually, questions are my favorite, just so you all know.
okay. I'm interested in the energetic practices I'm presuming you, uphold in your life. Is he focused on cultivating energy and directing it consciously, shielding techniques, any specifics?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of consciously and subconsciously built up my own personal protection over like for all through all my experiences up to now. And then I've made it like just like how I said to Antillin and Enliton here, and how you call your spirit guides have that intentionality. You can call in protection. In fact, I recommend everyone, you have the freedom to call in higher vibration, source light, angelic, highest, greatest good, no conflicting agendas,
Right.
protection. And it's your free will to call it in. And if you don't call it in, they can't help you because that's interference. But if you call it
Yeah.
in, the beings that meet those high criteria, and you want a high bar, obviously, and you give them permission, now you're inviting their gifts and blessings and help into your life. That's one thing. Another thing is really putting on the armor of God. And so you can look it up. It's in the Bible. If the letter Ephesians from like verses Ephesians 6 to 12 or sorry, Ephesians 6 12 to 18. It lays out what's called the armor of God. And so what is the armor of God? It's spiritual armor. It's not like, I get a real helmet and throw it on my head. It starts with here, I'm going to pull it up on my screen here, actually. Uh, Let me see. Share my screen. Share armor of God. So what is the armor of God, people? So in real life, if you have to put on armor and you only get one piece of armor to put on, the most important piece of armor, it's like when you go bicycling or roller skating, you put on your helmet. Okay, because you get hit in the head, the noggin, it's game over, obviously. And so, what is the armor of God? It starts with, oh, I wish I could find a larger image. The helmet is salvation. I just point at the helmet. Okay. And so, basically, what is the helmet of salvation? It's having a clear mind. Okay. So, if you have, I just say, mommy or daddy issues and you're 40 years old, and you've got a chip on your shoulder and you think the world owes you something, and you're drinking and clouding yourself, doing cocaine, whatever. Hate that drug. Terrible. Don't do that. It's evil. Then not that the good natural form of coca leaves isn't good, but it's been perverted in this society and doped up with all sorts of horrible things and has hurt so many people. Um, then you're not of clear mind. Then imagine being in a battlefield where you're kind of like knocked in the head, you're not seeing straight, you're automatically going to lose. So what do I do as a personal practice is I try to make sure I'm of a clear mind. Am I seeing the world clearly? Do I have any weird, distorted beliefs or limiting things that are holding me back or making me see the world in a way that it's not and that could actually be very dangerous? Okay, once you eliminate all that and you're of clear mind, that's the helmet of salvation. The next piece of armor that you want to wear is the breastplate of righteousness. After protecting your head, you got to protect your heart and your lungs. Okay, so
Um, we
yeah,
might have, are you still there? Okay.
yes. Did I mute
Yeah.
myself? Can you hear me?
For we hear you now. For a second, it just stopped for a second.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so The breastplate of righteousness spiritually to protect your heart, you know, and your lungs and all that. It's to conduct yourself in a righteous manner. Because if you conduct yourself in a righteous manner and you do everyone solid, then if anyone talks crap about you out there, anyone out there in society, they're like, what? Don't say that about Brian or Christos. That dude's righteous. Like he helped me out. He took care of me, helped save my hospital, whatever, like, and you're talking crap about him. He's righteous. That's what it is to wear a breastplate of righteousness. Now, people, if you don't conduct yourself righteously, you backstab, you steal, and all that, and word gets around, then you're dead meat, right? So that's a breastplate of
Yeah.
righteousness.
Like integrity. Have
They
integrity.
have integrity. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm trying to say like I do try to conduct myself as much as integrity as I can. Okay. The next piece of armor that you want after that is your belt of truth. Ever hear saying liar, liar, pants on fire? It kind of goes with the belt of the breastplate of righteousness. If you lie a lot, if you're not truthful, if you don't live your life in a truthful manner, then your pants fall around your ankles spiritually, figuratively speaking, and you've got no reputation and no leg to stand on, right? And that's another thing, the belt of truth. The next piece of armor after that is the shoes of the gospel of peace. And people are like, what is that? It took me a while to like figure out what is the shoes of the gospel of peace. It's when you know how the world is laid out. You've got, the gospel of love, of Christ consciousness with you. Then you can run around the world and not stub your toe and not sprain your ankle and fall and hit your knee. Okay, you can move around the world effectively like you've got boots on, instead of like, oh, I can run through thorns, don't matter, right? Because I've
Yeah.
got the shoes of the gospel of peace. So it's having a worldview and an understanding of,
Yeah.
not just the stuff, the truth in the Bible, because there are distortions. It was
Yeah.
distorted by the Freemasons, unfortunately, King James Bible. I'm looking at
Mhm.
you. Um, but when you find the truth and you have that truth, you can go anywhere you want in the world peacefully.
Mhm.
The next piece and the last piece of armor is the shield of faith. Even if you're confused, you're tired, you're beat down, whatever, you don't know which way is up, as long as you know you have the faith in God, in yourself, and that we're here to fight the good fight, then that'll hold protect you against anything. Okay. Now there's only one piece of weaponry that you really need with this armor of God, and that is the word of God, the breath of God, truth, the sword of truth. Okay. And how does that work? Like, how is like truth, like, how is that a weapon? Well, think of a John Wick movie. He's like killing everybody because they killed his dog, right? Like, he's shooting people, he's stabbing people, everything.
Yeah.
He's a badass. He's getting the most powerful machine guns that don't matter, right? Because what's even more powerful than being able to slice and dice people with a physical sword?
The truth.
The truth. If he was able to say to the father of the dummy son who killed his dog,
Yeah.
hey, blah 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 blah, and the father was truthful back and honorable, all of that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Okay, that is so powerful, so powerful. But yeah, that I like to cultivate what I call it, what in the Bible, the armor of God, and try to practice that.
Mhm.
And in doing that, that helps to shield you, because the higher stakes it gets in this game or whatever you want to call it, if you stray from the path with all the enemies that we have against us, our ass is grass. So you really have to
Yeah.
walk a narrow path. And that's where you see people who they get big and maybe they're telling a lot of great testimony, but they let it get to their head and they're taking
Ego.
money for the wrong people to like
Right.
water down their message a little bit. That's bad. Spiritually, your guides, they're going, The angels who are supposed to be protecting you, they're going, And God's source is like, okay, well, this fool's going to be a fool. Maybe I might have to let the enemy, show, you know, this person what their side's like. If they want to be on the enemy side, here you go.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, brother.
Yep.
That's what we have to do is live by principles. Even these Emerald Order teachings talk about principles that become part of your attitude, become part of your responsibility. And that's we walk the path, the original intention of Source God. And so that's what a lot of light workers, like you said earlier, star seeds coming in, indigo children coming in. That's we live through light. We represent light, speak it, think it. That's our duty, right? So,
And we can do it through the dark too, but just hopefully not through evil. There's a difference between darkness and evil. And that's God gave us free will, the greatest gift of
right.
all.
It's a divine gift.
Yeah, and some people they want to choose a service to self path, and that's their right. Yes, the law of one, they're just instead of service to other path is like more I see is like here's God's source. If your service to other, you're just more trying to direct line it. And then if your service to self, you want to take the roundabout path and go a little bit further away and explore the darkness or even the evil, and find out what that's like, and then eventually, hopefully, reform and then
Mm,
get in a path that's more in harmony and
right.
more in line with the light.
Mhm.
But that's up to you.
All right. I have a question for Brian. What does he know about shadow people?
So shadow people, it's kind of like people or beings from other densities or dimensions projecting themselves into this density. And then we're perceiving them as shadows. Just like when you see light ships, like Palladian light ships, and you'll see like a video and it looks like just someone's like shining a giant spotlight at the camera. You're like, look, their special effects are so bad they couldn't even come up with a spaceship. They just did a beam of light. Well, you're not seeing the ship, you're seeing the shadow of the ship, but if it's a shadow of a ship from a higher dimension, instead of a dark black shadow, it's a light shadow or a light cutout, instead of a dark cutout. And so the shadow people, a lot of them, especially the ones that tend to be more menacing that people in our communities see as children, what some of us suspect is that's a Project Oblivion type program where the lower entities who are aligned with a negative Luciferian demonic agenda, they're trying to beat us all down. They don't want us to awaken and activate our abilities and use them freely. So what they'll do is they'll pay us nightmarish visits, especially during our childhood, as we're activating our abilities to make us want to shut down our own abilities through fear and trauma. And so some people think that that's one aspect of a shadow people harassment program. Not all shadow people, mind you, but for a lot of people, that's one aspect and might be an explanation of the phenomena because we're seeing a very
Yeah.
common type of theme in a lot of these visitations with shadow people that are fear induced and children who have gifts. Like, what do you know? Like, why would they do that? That's probably
All
why.
right. Thanks for that, man.
Mhm.
And if you had one message for like humanity about what's coming, what would it be?
It is up to us the kind of world we want ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, and on, and our ET family, and inner Earth, what we all want to experience. It's up to us. And it really depends on how much spiritual we want work that we want to do because it's spiritual warfare. And if we want to be lovers of truth and do everything we can to expose the darkness and the evil and to bring forth the truth, then we are, through our free will, aligning ourselves much more with a bright, beautiful Star Trek future, utopian future, organic, Christed timeline. And if we don't want to do the work, we don't love the truth, we want to drink the Kool-Aid and eat up convenient lies or whatever you want to call them, then by our free will, maybe even though we're deceiving ourselves, it's still free will, we're positioning ourselves for a lower, not Christed timeline. And so my message is it's up to all of us. And please, my brothers and sisters, let's go for the Christed timeline, not just for our own sakes, but for the sakes of especially the children, first and foremost, and anyone, the men and women who are being sexually enslaved and MK
Mhm.
Ultra'd and eaten and abused and yeah,
It's definitely a spiritual war going on. So we're glad
100%.
to have you on our side, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be on our side too. I know I'd be probably pretty bad on the other side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be on our side.
Well, they try to entangle the indigos to work for their agendas because they're powerful. So yeah, I know exactly
I,
what you're saying.
I,
So
I I'm really sad to say it, but they're probably I'm told that I, like everyone in the programs, have probably some negative alters who I'm like
mhm.
evil Brian Solar B, evil B running around, Dark Sun B or whatever you want to call me, versions of me doing terrible things. And that really pains and saddens me. And that makes me here want to fight that much harder to fix this.
Yeah, and you will. You're on that trajectory. So we'll be
Yeah.
healing those other versions of ourselves, wherever they may be. So. But it's a great honor, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sure there's going to be a part two in the future. So,
Yeah. If you like me back, please put it in the comments. And thank you everyone for showing up and your support. And thank you for having me, brother.
yeah, man, it's an honor, and it's important for star seeds and indigos to co-create, and so we'll be
Absolutely. We are. It's yeah, a party ain't fun if you're alone. But
right.
once we all get together,
Hell
we're
yeah,
rocking so much the other side had to launch Project Oblivion. So there you
yeah.
go. Yeah,
Looking
we're doing
forward
it.
to Sedona retreats. That'll be awesome.
We're working on it. If everyone out there who's for this and for the higher timeline, please, your prayers and blessings are
Yeah,
much appreciated.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Thank you everyone who joined us tonight, and we'll see you guys on Saturday. Send out that Christ consciousness, that love out there, you guys. Thank you so much for being part of this disclosure movement. Thank you, Ryan. Take
Thank
care.
you.